Hi Lawson, we've got your chassis back from the sandblaster now, and I thought I'd get a little bit of this before we hit it with primer, because it will, once it's primed, you won't see some of the rotten areas that we're talking about quite so clearly on film. So obviously it's upside down at the moment. We've been blowing some of the sand and muck and whatnot out, but I want to get a coat of primer on this PDQ so we can just to protect it a little bit. You can see just inside the frame horn there where it's all cracked and split apart, and there's a big bulge in there, and we've got the same sort of thing on the other side, but you can see in between the two layers where there's all this shale and muck and whatnot, and that's forcing the two skins of the chassis apart. I've got new inner pieces to go in there, so we'll cut those out and clean everything and then weld the new pieces in. We've got on this is the driver's side, of course. Now we've got where the power steering bracket, it was, I don't know if you remember or if I said, but it was loose on this one, and you can see where the chassis has cracked around that mount. And they've also, these holes have been drilled out for some reason. They're larger than normal. This is the standard size, and those have been drilled out, and this one's all cracked and broken, so we'll have to replace that section as well. There's the cross member that has had a piece welded over, and you can actually see further up there's some pinholes that are showing, so it's obviously real thin here. And before we sent this away, you have a tap around with a little hammer to see what it feels like. You could hear that it sounded very, very dull sounding, like it was quite thin. Then when you get to the rear, you can see in there the holes in the side rail and the end rail, and also where the centre cross member joins. Same round the trailing arm pockets. Look how bad it is in there. Bloody awful, isn't it? All that's you can see that thick shale in between the two skins, and how it's forced this one apart. And we've got the same in here. Moving further back, it's through on this chassis on that rear leg. We've got the same here, and it looks like that's been re-welded and then filled. And if you look, I don't know if you'll see so much from this side, when it was around the other way, yeah, you can see in there, that's the rear cross member, and that's all, I mean, it's all dented here too, but you can see that's all again spreading apart in there. Bloody hell, it's cold today, I tell you. So yeah, really not very good. I've got our donor piece inside, and when I do the rest of the sandblaster stuff, I'll get some of that for you, but I just want to get some of this before Ronnie painted it. Here you can see on the other side, all that shale in there again. We didn't bother taking the arms out because we knew this was going to get cut off, and it would have taken hours to get these out, and it was just been a waste of time. And all in here, how manky it is, and the same on this chassis rail. And there's even a bit of the filler that someone's used. Do you know what? I had a guy here the other day talking about buying a car and bringing it in from the States, and I was telling him, I said, well, you've just got to be so careful about what you buy, and you could see it going in one ear and out the other. And this is the kind of thing, I mean, these cover-up jobs seem to be even more common on cars from the USA than they are on cars from England, Does seem to be a fairly common practice over there. So there you go. Not looking too clever, but we'll get some primer on this and then turn it over and do the other side. And oh, what I was talking about, there's yours. Sorry, I thought that was indoors. We lifted it off the dolly this morning to put this other chassis, put your chassis on. We're going to bring this inside later. So that's the donor piece, which has been sandblasted now, and we've given this a coat of primer just to protect it a bit, and you can see the difference in trailing arm pockets and all around these areas, so that's a much more a much better looking proposition, I think. We haven't been around this with a fine tooth comb yet. but I want to just make sure it is all a-okay before we start doing anything. It's had the gussets cut off, I can see, and it's a bit thin just in here. So we'll have a good look around. I mean, even if this isn't good for your particular job, it'll be good for another one. So we'll see. If it's not going to be used on yours, then I think your only other prospect, because I haven't got any other back end, I think your only other prospect then is to replace the chassis. You know, and that's not as easy as all that. But again, there's some we've had a couple of guys bring them in from the States, but they've turned up here and they've had bits bent or whatever. So you're never 100% sure what you're getting. But we'll have a good look around that donor piece and just make sure it is going to do the job. And if it isn't, then we'll figure out plan B. So we'll do some more in a bit.